Good morning. This is the Board of County Commissioners for agenda setting work session for November 6, 2018. I'm going to start off with a master agenda, and then of course I'll bounce back and forth as we go through each agenda per day and session. So I'll start off with the November 6, 2018 agenda, and of course 2 o'clock this afternoon we'll call the meeting to order. And we have Commissioner Edwards to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and of course we'll approve the agenda if there are no revisions or modifications. And finally, any board meeting minutes from October 30th, 2018. So we're very excited to have one presentation here today. It's the Adoption Day, and we have Superior Court who's going to host it, and specifically Pam Hartman-Beyer, who is the Superior Court Administrator, to come tell us a little bit about Adoption Day.
Yeah, she will be coming this afternoon, Commissioners, to give you a perspective and a little bit of a background as to how the Adoption Day has come to be, which is November 15, 2018 this year. So that will give you an opportunity to ask questions to the Superior Court as well.
So does she have a proclamation? Or? Okay, sure. Yeah. As long as it's being done, yeah. Any comments or questions about Adoption Day? No. Anything? Well, I'll make a comment. I went 3 years ago to Adoption Day out there, and you cannot imagine the wonderful feeling it is to watch families come together. I'll just say it that way, because the adoptee and the adopters come finalize, even though there's probably been some formalities done done before that. But that day really sends home a message that you've brought a person who is in need of adoption to a family, and it's just a great, wonderful feeling to see that happen in our, not only in our courts, but in our community. And I just welcome, it's open to the public, so anybody can go, but I invite anybody to go, even if you do for 5 minutes and see one, because there'll be about 15 or 20 adoptions that happen during the day. But it's a great feeling. It's a good thing to happen. So, all right. So the next item we have is the opportunity for the public to address the board. And I don't know if there's any kind of
I don't have any
items
insight.
Percolating out there.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. We'll discover them as we go along then. And the next item is the county manager's update. Do you have anything at that point in time?
No, I don't have any specific updates for you, Commissioners.
Sure. So we'll move right into the item number 3, which is the consent items. And we have A through G. And the first one is 3A, a 1-year lease extension on the Beshart Investments, LLC for Thurston County Sheriff Office for the amount of $3,600.
Yeah, you reviewed these items last week. In this particular items at request from the Sheriff's Office, where they're currently leasing a 300 square foot office space located at 8410 30th Avenue Northeast in Lacey. And this is related to the patrol operations, and that office is used to cover the East County on their response. It's $300 a month, which includes utilities, and this is an extension for 1 year.
Sounds like a good deal to me.
We're making good deals today, huh? Alrighty, so 3A is approved, not a problem. So we'll go on to 3B. 3B is again from the Sheriff's Office, is a 1 lease extension on the West Thurston Regional Fire Authority in Rochester for $2,400.
Yeah, similar to the previous item, the Sheriff's Office rents an office space on the Fire Authority, Thurston Regional Fire Authority building, which is 120 square feet office space located at 18720 Sergeant Road in Rochester. And this office helps the patrol operations to cover the South and West counties. This is $200 a month, which includes utilities as well.
Any comments on that? No. 3B is good. So we go to 3C. Is from Emergency Services. And this is Burke, B-E-R-K, Consulting, Contract for Emergency Services Survey.
Yeah, this is a request to hire the professional services from Burke Consultant. As you may recall, this consultant helped us in the development of the Thurston strategic plan, our strategic plan. And the request for this is $21,000 to use their services to help implement Initiative number 5 of the Thurston strategic plan, which is strengthen emergency medical services provided countywide by Medic One in area hospitals. Medic One has chosen to take a survey approach to determine how this particular initiative could be implemented. And this is going to be covered by Medic One, no general fund.
I'm good.
You good with that? Are you good with 3C?
The survey for emergency services?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, 3C is approved. So 3D is the prosecuting attorney's office. And this is an approval of a grant from the Secretary of State for the purchase of public records management system.
Yeah, this is related to an application the prosecuting attorney's office requested a grant application from the Washington State Secretary of State, and they received $30,000 to implement a public records management system. And this particular grant requests your approval accepting this grant. And again, this is state money, it's not federal money, and it requires a $12,000 match, which is already included on your preliminary 2019 budget.
Is this closely related to the PRU, Public Records Unit?
Yes. In fact, this particular application will help that unit to be more effective as to how they manage all the many different public records across the county.
Where does the $10,000 or the $12,000 grant come from?
The match.
The match for the grant.
I believe the $12,000 match was coming from that was the non-departmental, correct? Yeah. Did I answer your question?
So not general fund.
Well, it is general fund.
It is general
Yeah.
fund. Okay, does it have to be general fund, or can it be that two-thirds breakdown?
I don't think so, because it's a 2-year lag.
Okay.
2-year lag, killing you, isn't it? Did you want to do something with it more as far as 12,000?
No, 2 years we'll do something with it.
You good?
And
All
again,
right.
it's just one time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's just one time.
So 3D is approved. So we'll move on to 3. Is that 3D? Oh, 3E. And again, from the Sheriff's Office, this is the inmate housing contract with Lewis County Sheriff's Office.
This is a request to extend the existing contract that we have with Lewis County to provide beds on their jail to address the overflow of our jail. And this is on a yearly basis. The 2018 rate was $63.39 per inmate per day. And the 2019 rate is the same. There is no changes to that rate.
All right.
Is this a block of beds that are rented, or is it per bed?
It's per bed, per inmate, per bed, per day.
And what is it currently budgeted for? The amount, you know? Or how much we're spending on that?
It's not just for this, it's for all the contract beds that we have. And
All
we
of them,
have,
just Lewis?
not just
Right.
Lewis. This includes Lewis County as well as Yakima County that we use for that.
Okay.
And as you may see, the jail population has decreased, and we have seen a little bit of a reduction on that.
Right, but this is just for the Lewis County though, isn't it?
This is just for the Lewis County,
Right.
yes.
Okay. All right.
Good.
You good? Yep. All right. That gets through 3E. 3F is the Community Planning and Economic Development Department. And so this is an appointment of the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board. And so this is the Mr. Clayton Hill.
Yeah, this is a follow-up on the board's recommendation to go ahead and appoint Mr. Clayton Hill to the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board. And this is a not-large position. It's not necessarily related to any particular commissioner's district. And this term will go from November 6th, 2018, if approved, to November 6th, 2021.
All righty.
And he came with a strong recommendation.
Yeah, Trish did it.
Yeah, and you receive good letters of recommendation from the chair.
Okay, so going to move on to 3G, which is the Auditor's Financial Services, which is on the website. So I'll move into department items, and which would be item number 4, the treasurer. And so item 4 is the set up public hearing to amend Thurston County Code 2.105, the disposal of property tax title property.
This is a conversation, an ongoing conversation that you had with the county treasurer. And the intent of this request is to give the county treasurer the authority to dispose tax title property. And I believe this is a good way to move forward, because as many properties can take out of the tax title, they can be under the property tax. I think is beneficial to the county. And I believe the county treasurer has a good program. They can be proactive in surplusing those properties. This particular request, since this is an amendment to the county code, requires to hold a public hearing. So this request is for you to set the public hearing for November 27, 2018, at 3 in the afternoon here in this room.
All righty. Any comments or questions on that?
No.
There is another one on the 27th. Though, is there not?
At the end of the meeting, I will give you all the public hearings that you're going to be holding on the 27th.
Okay, you're going to rack and stack them on us. Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, this item is consistent with Initiative 14 of the Thurston County Strategic Plan.
Okay. Any comments, questions? Nope. Okay, we're good with that one. So we're going to move on to item number 5, which is from Public Works. This is a resolution and call for sealed bids for the Delphi Road upgrade Phase 3 at the 67th Avenue Southwest to the 32nd Avenue Southwest, project number 61451.
Yeah, this is the stage 3 of the ongoing construction on Delphi Road. The limits, as you stated, Commissioner, is from 62nd Avenue Southwest to 32nd Avenue Southwest. This particular project is funded by the County Road Administration Board grant for $1.7 million and about $970,000 from the County Road Fund. All that is included in the budget, and this particular item is aligned with the Thurston County Strategic Plan Initiative number 7.
Okay.
And I'll be more than happy to read the initiatives if you like.
From the strategic plan?
Yep.
You want to read the initiative?
No, not necessarily.
No, but thank you for offering.
Yeah, okay. We have set aside. Okay, so if no issues, number 5 is good, and we're going to move to number 6. So that's from Community Planning and Economic Development. Set a public hearing for annual update to the Chapter 6 of the Thurston County Comprehensive Plan for the 2018-2023 Capital Facilities Plan.
This is part of the budget, regular budget process. You had a briefing from staff on the capital facilities plan of September 2018. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on September 19, 2018 as well, and recommended approval as presented. So this request for you to set a public hearing for Monday, December 3rd, 2018 at 6 in the afternoon. As you may recall, there is a series of public hearings that will related to the budget that will be held on the afternoon of and the evening of both December 3rd, which is a Monday, and December 4th, which is a Tuesday. So as a result, the Board of County Commissioners meeting on December 4th will be canceled for you to hold the public hearings on the budget.
Any comments or questions?
Okay.
Good. This is a good thing. Then we get the rest of the capital on the comp plan out of the way. All righty. Moving on to 6B. And 6B is the final consideration of the renewal of an interim marijuana regulation, ordinance number 14944 as amended.
Yes, you held a public hearing on this particular matter last Tuesday, October 30th, which you received, I believe, 3 testimonies. One, not necessarily related opposing to this, it was more related to the overall marijuana regulation. So this particular item is for you to consider extending the interim regulation for another 6 months. And this particular action will be effective November 8th, 2018, since the current ordinance expires on that day. Within the whole process, you are not committing just to go with the 6 months with the interim regulation at any time. You can rescind the interim regulation, as well as you can approve any permanent regulation within that period of time. And I believe the 6 months extension will give staff enough time to bring you back with some particular proposals as you would like to proceed on this.
Yeah, and we had a couple questions as well from that hearing. So we'll get that information and we can do it anytime.
Yep.
Basically, yeah.
Thank you.
All righty, so moving on to item number 7, which is Public Health and Social Services. This is the approval of the Nurse Family Partnership National Service Office Incentive Fund Agreement.
Yeah, this is an agreement to approve the Nurse Family Partnership National Service Office Initiative Fund Agreement for the period of October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2021 for a maximal funding consideration of $927,000. This particular agreement would provide funding for expansion of the evidence-based Nurse Family Partnership NFP program. These funds will allow community health nurses to deliver home visits to eligible mothers, children in Thurston, Mason, and Lewis counties. And this particular item is related to initiative number 2 of the Thurston County Strategic Plan.
Comments or questions, concerns?
Nope, good deal.
We're good. That's great. Great. Okay, so we're going to move on to number 8, which is the Commissioners and County Managers items. And so 8A is the set of public hearing on revenue sources for 2019-2020 budget. This is revenue specifically. Yeah,
this is revenue specific. It is related to the 2019-2020 budget, and is scheduled for November 27th at 3 in the afternoon, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard. And that is important because we have 7 public hearings scheduled for the 27th.
What?
And I'll walk you through here in a minute.
I've never had that.
Is the crunch time. So for the 27th.
All right, for the 27th.
For the 27th, we have a Board of Health public hearing, and this is related for you to consider the fee schedule.
Yep, gotta have that
related
one.
to the environmental health. On the November 27th, you will have the property tax code amendment sponsored by the Treasurer's Office. You also have a public hearing by the Sheriff's Office related to the traffic code amendment related to allowing all-terrain vehicles
ATVs,
on roads below 35 miles an hour. You also have the budget amendment number 7 for the 2017-2018 biennial budget, and the revenue sources for the 2019-2020 budget. And lastly, Public Health and Social Services has a consolidated annual performance evaluation report, the CAPER, which is an annual public hearing.
So we could take the budget amendment number 7 and move that to December 3rd or 4th, if that would help at all. That's usually a very short one.
We don't have on the December 4th. If as part of the overall.
We would make it part of the budget hearing.
Yeah, that could be.
We could just do a proclamation, make November 27th public hearing day. And
You could do that.
You know,
I'm trying to
but
offer.
considering the items they have before you on the public
should
hearings,
approve
history tells that there is not much public.
just keep them all on 27th.
Right,
knock
it's
them
very
out.
short.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
And I believe beginning at 3 o'clock, I think you should be able to manage that. And that's what I highlighted on each of those public hearings. They said, as soon as thereafter, as the matter may be heard, give you the flexibility to manage all the different public hearings as you see fit.
But right now, they're currently just allotted 30 minutes. The public hearing.
All of them?
No.
No, not all of them. Each one, it looks like.
No. Oh, I've already know.
But if we stack them, I'm just wondering about getting information out and having people rotate in and out, giving people sufficient time.
There is not an allotted time of 30 minutes per public hearing, no.
I don't mean
Are
shut
we
it down,
going
but I
to
mean on
schedule
the
them all
calendar,
for
it
3
shows.
o'clock or as soon thereafter as
Yep.
Yeah.
maybe heard?
The soon thereafter, so the order that I proposed was the Board of Health on the fee schedule, then the Treasurer's Office on the tax title property, the Sheriff's Office on the county roads, ATVs, then the 2 budget-related hearings, the budget amendment as well as the revenue sources. And lastly is the consolidated annual performance evaluation report, the CAPER. But that order can be managed.
Yeah, I think that we may need to hold the budget revenue hearing before the one on the
Y'all work that out.
fees.
Tell us the time and date, get it all lined up.
Okay, so we'll work on the order, but I'd recommend just keeping
That's
those.
fine. After Thanksgiving, we'll be fat and happy, ready to do it. So.
On the 27th, we have 2, or 27th, there'll be another one. There'll be several.
On the 27th, we'll have 7.
We'll have 7 on the 27th,
Yeah.
so it'll be from 1500 until we're done?
Yeah,
Okay,
back to back. And if we do it Bud style.
got it.
And as soon as the public is coming in, I will make sure that I will give them an indication as to what the schedule
order.
is. And I will make available a little bit of
Sure.
an
Okay, good.
agenda for the public hearings.
All right, so that's 3S8A.
Yeah.
Any issues on 8A?
No.
Any issues?
Fine.
Okay, 8B is similar, but you want to go ahead and explain it?
Yeah, this is related to the budget amendment for the 2017 and 2018 biennial budget. That's the last one. You had a briefing from the Assistant County Manager yesterday on the details of the budget amendment. Later on, although it's not on the agenda, we would like to have your direction as to how you would like to proceed with that particular budget amendment. One of the items that perhaps is outstanding, it was the decision on the recommendation from the Salary Commission to increase the salaries of the elected officials. Just for the public benefit, you have the option to agree or not to the salaries recommended by the Salary Commission to all elected officials except for yourselves. You do not vote on your salary, and the recommendations from the Salary Commission becomes part of the budget. So you do not have the option to vote yourselves on a salary increase.
We're not allowed to vote on ours,
Nope.
but we do approve or disapprove of the other electeds.
Of the other electeds.
It's written in statute.
Okay. That's state law?
Yeah, because that will be a conflict of interest for you to vote yourself on an increase.
But also state law, the board
Yeah.
has to approve the
Yeah.
others.
Got it.
And then with the whole context, as you may recall, whether you decide, that will be decision number 1 for you to approve or disapprove the salary increases. If you choose to approve the salary increases, then the next decision will be whether you like to include those increases on the 2019-2020 budget, or you would like to ask each of the elected officers to absorb those increases as part of the normal budget allocation.
Alrighty.
2 decision points.
And I know what the state law says. I just wanted the public to hear it
Oh.
because I know what it'll perceive to be in our daily newspaper of record, how it'll be spun.
Yeah, and there's although we clarify this year, every year,
Every year, yeah.
and every year the news
Somebody
comes a
says
little bit
something.
different.
Thank you.
And again, to emphasize, you do not vote. You, Board of County Commissioners, do not vote on your salary revisions.
Yeah. All right.
Before you move on,
Sure.
there should be one other, and I'll get it added to today's agenda, setting of a public hearing, and that's for the public hearings on.
For the 27th.
No. We could do it on the 27th.
We're already here.
Actually, we can't. We are legally required to, here's for the rest.
Thanks.
Thank you, Vicki.
This is
We
budget
are
related.
legally required to hold the budget hearing for next biennium on December 3rd and 4th. So because we have canceled next week's board meeting, we need to get this on today's agenda as
Okay.
well. So here's the schedule that we'll hand out, that you will approve for the public hearings.
It's already December.
Yeah, isn't
So,
that incredible?
Let me read that for the public,
Yeah.
just to make sure.
Oh, I can do that.
Yeah, please.
I'm sorry. So the public hearings will be on Monday, December 3rd, and Tuesday, December 4th. And the specific timing of the hearings, at 1:30, the board will hear the budgets for law and justice. That includes the clerk, the coroner, district court, pretrial services, prosecuting attorney, the sheriff, superior courts, and juvenile court, and public defense. Then at 4 o'clock will be the budget hearing for general government. That includes the assessor, the auditor, commissioners, treasurer, human resources, central services, and then I will add to this the new IT department. At 6 o'clock, as you know, is the hearing on capital facilities plan. At 6:15 is a general hearing on any section of the budget that the public would like to comment on. Tuesday, December 4th at 1:30 is the hearing on transportation, environment, and land use. That is CPED and Public Works. At 4 o'clock on Tuesday, December 4th is the budget hearing on Health and Human Services, which includes public health and social services and emergency services. And then again at 6:30 on Tuesday evening, a general hearing where the public can comment on any section of the budget.
And is this posted?
This will be
Be posted.
posted, this will be posted today.
Today, after today?
Yep,
Okay.
and then the budget itself will be posted on November 19th.
The
Final
budget,
adoption?
the draft.
The adoption will be on December 14th.
And yet to be decided whether it's 10 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon. We resolved the conflicts. Also related to this budget, it is not expected the head of the offices of appointed directors to give a formal presentation to each of those budgets. However, they need to be present to make sure that they answer any questions the public may have as
Right.
required by law.
So unlike other public hearings where the board just receives comment, at the budget hearing, citizens may ask questions and can be answered at that time.
All righty. Any comments, questions on
No,
that? Okay,
good.
so there's going to be an addition to the agenda for today.
Yes,
All right.
we'll get on today's.
All righty, that completes the Board of County Commissioners agenda for November 6th. And just ask if there's any comments or questions before we move on to the Board of Health. I'm going to stick with the timed daily activities, so I'll have the Board of Health. No questions on that. We'll go straight to the Board of Health. And Shelley and Lydia are here. And so for the Board of Health, it's also here on, I'm on this for everybody who's viewing YouTube or in the audience, that I'm on the Board of Health for agenda Tuesday, November 6, 2018. And 3:30, I'll call the meeting to order. And do we have a proclamation? I don't know. It doesn't really say that. I'm just curious. It has the-
Yes, we do. It
Okay.
is Movember.
Oh, Movember. How could I forget Movember? Okay, you want to give just a 30-second background on what Movember is and the proclamation consists of?
Sure, yes. Is this on? Can you hear me
Nope, it's
today?
not on.
Can you hear
It
me
is
now?
on? Well,
Yep.
It's
I
on.
can barely hear you.
It is on. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am Shelley Slaughter, Director of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. And for item 2, we will have a proclamation. There it is. For item 2, we'll have a proclamation and be asking you to proclaim
it now. It's on the
November
back.
as Movember. Yes, it's on page 2 of your agenda. This month is to raise awareness of men's health issues, particularly cancer such as testicular and prostate cancer, as well as mental health, depression, and suicide prevention. Many people during this month grow a mustache. I learned, after Commissioner Hutchings urged me to research the history of this, that in Australia they call a mustache a mo, which is why it is called Movember. So I will actually have mustaches for those of you that haven't quite achieved that.
So this could be the
this
beard
month.
of health rather than the board of health.
The beard of health.
And we will have a speaker, Jacob Bryson.
He's a great guy.
Yes. He will be here to talk to you about men's health awareness, particularly men's cancers, and will accept the proclamation.
Yeah, great. Any questions or
No.
comment on that? On
Nope.
Movember? No?
Nope.
Okay, great. So then item number 3 is the opportunity for the public to address the board, and I'll just ask if there's any items of issue that you might know about. Nope, everybody's
Not that I'm
healthy.
aware
Great. We'll move into department items, which starts with item number 4. And it's a Thurston Thrives update. It's the area emphasis update, and either Liz or Crosby or a combination of that.
I think it'll be just Crosby who will be doing this presentation, and she will be updating the Board of Health on the areas of emphasis that the Thurston Thrives Coordinating Council has recently selected, and that includes focus areas on children, youth, and families, housing and homelessness, and economy.
The trio of things. Alrighty, any comments on that?
No.
Thurston
Got it.
Thrives? No. Good. Going to move on to item number 5, which is a department item also, the approval of a joint plan of responsibility agreement with the Washington Department of Health for water recreation facilities. And I think you have Sammy coming to give background on that. from
Yes,
staff.
Sammy will give a background on it, but just to briefly share with you what this item is. This renews our agreement with Department of Health, which delineates Department of Health's responsibility and our department's responsibility in the regulation and inspection of water recreation facilities. So that's like pools, spas, spray parks, things of that nature. So Department of Health is responsible for the construction phase, and then our department is responsible for pre-opening and ongoing inspections related to the safety of the water recreation facility.
Sure. Any questions or comments?
And there's no financial
No.
impact to this.
Any questions on the motion for you? Because
Nope.
this is going to be a motion on that we normally.
Yep.
All right. Any follow-up? No? 5? Good. Let's move on to item number 6, which is also a department item. It's the approval of amendment number 1 to the Lewis County Health Officer Services contract for 2019 services. And you're going to give a little bit of background on Dr. Woods?
Yes.
Mhm.
So we have an agreement currently in place that we're asking you to amend for the next calendar year for sharing of health officer services. So we employ our health officer, Dr. Wood, who is also the appointed health officer for Lewis County. So we seek reimbursement from Lewis County for the time of which Dr. Wood's activities are serving Lewis County, which is 1 day a week, 8 hours approximately, plus including travel and expenses. So we have done a fiscal analysis to project what the anticipated costs will be for next year for Dr. Wood's health officer services for Lewis County, and are asking the board to amend that because this falls under the Board of Health due to our shared health services.
Comments or questions?
This, the 25% deal, that's,
Would you like to see it?
yeah, how come it's 25%? Sometimes it's
15.
10, or what?
I don't know exactly why historically this one was selected to be 25%, but the amount of $47,000 gives us a little bit of room in case there's some additional expenses incurred by Lewis County. So that may be if Lewis County has an event and requires extra time, or there's extra travel, or there's some extra training
25 still
that's
good?
Lewis
Yep.
County's responsibility. So that gives us a little bit of flexibility to increase that amount during the year without coming back to you.
Okay, good. We'll keep 25 in there then.
Okay, thank you.
You have any comments or questions?
No, I don't.
No, and this is just for historic information purposes, this is the 4th or 5th year that we've done this with Lewis County, Dr. Woods.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure exactly whether it's 4 or 5.
Yeah, okay.
I can get that information for you.
I just let, how many? It's the 5th, okay, good. I just let people know that this is an ongoing thing, is really what I'm trying to say, so, yes. I'm going to try to put you on the spot there. Alrighty, so any comments or questions on number 6? No. Going on, okay, we're good with that. So we'll move to number 7, where the Board of Health Commissioners will have an item to talk about that's health related. This is a good time to do it, especially for men's health. And then number 8 is Director's Report. And number 9, we have Dr. Wood giving a health officer's report, and then any other items before we adjourn. So that's the Board of Health. Any comments or questions from anybody, anyone around? PIO? Okay, Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Lydia.
Considering the schedule, is this going to be the last Board of Health meeting? Because when is the next scheduled meeting? Is December 17?
It's the second week of November, the second Tuesday of December.
Okay, so we still have time to have another one.
So
That
it's
would
either
be
the
the-
12th or the-
December 11th will
Okay.
be the next.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we
Board
still
of
have
Board
one.
of Health.
One more.
Yeah, one more.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we'll go to 2019. Thank you very much. So I'm going to move on to the next Board of County Commissioners November 20th meeting. And we're at 2 o'clock. I'm on this piece of paper here. So for November 20th is the date title there. Call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock. And I'll ask Commissioner Edwards to do the Pledge of Allegiance again. And so we'll move to approve the agenda and the board meeting minutes as appropriate. And ask if there's the public want to address the board. And is there any county manager's update currently today?
If you hear any particular testimony this afternoon that needs a follow-up, I will do so at that time.
Sure. So item number 3 on the November 20th is consent items, and it's A through G. And the first one is 3A with the Public Health and Social Services. It's an interlocal cooperation agreement regarding joint wastewater flow reduction and water conservation projects for 2019 and 2024.
Yeah, before we start talking about the specific items, you will see on this agenda there is still a lot of items that the state is not ready. So since we're
It's a work in
2
progress.
weeks away, so
Yeah,
work
yeah.
in progress, so we may not have all
We'll
the
have to adjust.
answers that you may to your questions you may
Oh,
have.
this one? Okay, I see it now. Good.
So if there's a little bit of background, the Labonita just handed to you, but again, so this particular item 3A, there is an agreement with LOT and also with the different jurisdictions. And the purpose of this agreement is to reduce wastewater flow as part of the Water Conservation Coordination Plan. And the goal, as I understand this particular agreement, includes the reducing at least 120,000 gallons per day by year 2024. It is an interesting agreement because really the county is participant in LOT, but the county doesn't have any customers contributing to LOT. So because all the county customers that are within the UGA are served by the utilities provided by the cities. So the county really doesn't have a utility that leads to LOT. But this is a cooperating agreement to achieve those goals.
Sure.
And doesn't have any financial obligation for the county at this point. And I think public health is here to answer. There it is.
We're good. We're good.
I'm kind of curious about water quality. Is that the goal here, for water quality?
Well, eventually it is.
Reduction of the amount of water?
Flow.
Is
Yeah, but I mean,
eliminating the flow because LOT is one of the top wastewater utilities in the region as to how they treat wastewater,
Yes.
which is related to water quality. This particular agreement is to reduce the amount of wastewater that LOT receives. So down the road, they can probably either wait into the future or eliminate expansion of the plant. That is really the intent of this agreement. Water quality is embedded as part of the operations, and again, this utility is one of the leaders in water quality in the
so is
South.
this water discharged through the LOT program, is that right? Into the salt water, is that where it goes?
Yes, yeah, after it's treated.
I mean, might they be diverting water to be discharged over towards Hawks Prairie? Is that
No,
what's going on here? To groundwater, or what's
no, I
the
believe the
difference?
intent is to have an education program they can start addressing at the source, meaning at the individual customers as to how they can start reducing wastewater on their current use. I don't think this plan includes any diversion because there's no other plant that can treat wastewater other than LOT.
Well, except they do in-ground dispersal of water over by Hawks Prairie.
That's a
But there's a
recharge.
different program,
That's
yeah.
a
That's a different program.
reclaimed water.
Right, but that's what I'm wondering. Are they going to put it there versus the salt water, or just try to get it
Is
to
a
be
combi-
less water
is a
coming through?
combination.
You want
because-
Shelley up here?
But this at the
Well, maybe
source, at page
Art
2,
kinda has a,
page 2, kind of lets you know if you haven't seen that, what they're recommending at the source, like
Yeah.
washing machines, clothes, you know.
okay, more efficient
toilet,
washing machines.
yeah,
It's at the
was
toilet
it,
program,
efficient
water
toilets. Okay,
efficiency.
So as
that's
I-
good enough.
As
all
I,
listed
as, I,
here.
as I
That's
understand
That's all I
is,
really need.
as
for
I
now.
understand is reducing how much flow goes into the plant.
Okay.
Yeah. Microphone, Art, microphone.
Well, we didn't need Art now.
I'm Art Starr, the Environmental Health Director.
You're
and
still-
I'm not really needed here.
We're conserving your energy.
Yeah, okay. Good enough.
And this particular item is aligned with Thurston County Strategic Plan Initiative number 8. And I can read those initiatives if you like.
We're going to do that on the 27th. Item 3B is from Central Services, and it's a resolution for reclassifying a position, IT consultant number 2 to IT consultant number 3.
Yeah, this is a request from Central Services, and this is really related to the growing needs to have a higher skilled individuals to help us deal with all the IT services the county provides. So this particular request, this individual has been serving as in an interim basis or temporary basis while he's training as the IT consultant number 2 in this classification. Now this person has been trained is to provide higher level of service. This particular action includes moving the salary from $7,834 to $8,289. And again, that's the top range of those scales, which is $455 a month or 6%. And this is not covered by the general fund, but rather by the IT reserves.
Any questions on the IT?
No.
I do.
No.
The increase in cost for the reclassification, that's increase in salary as well?
Yeah, they actually increase to the individual may not be to the full extent, maybe less than that.
But that'll be absorbed within their budget?
Yep. No.
And is there going to be a backfill issue when somebody, I know that person's been in an interim position, but is there going to be a backfill behind them?
There is not a vacant position, it's a reclassification of existing
All right.
position.
Okay, going on to 3C, again from Central Services, a reclassification of position, capital project manager number 1 to capital project manager number 2.
Yes, it's similar to the previous one. There is obviously an increase in the scope of work as well as complexity of all the different facility projects the staff is conducting, which requires a higher level of skill. In this case, is the capital project manager 2. This particular increase will have an impact on the budget of it will go from $6,774 to $7,524, an increase of $750 a month or 11%. And those most likely will be covered by the building reserves associated with the different projects. There is not a direct impact to the general fund.
Any comments or
No.
questions? No?
Nope.
Nope, we're good on that one. So,
Items 3B and 3C are aligned with initiative number 18.
Okay, you can read that one later. 3D is emergency services, and this is an agreement with the U.S. Department of Interior, U.S. Geological Survey for operational and maintenance of stream flow discharge and precipitation gauges on the Deschutes and Skookumchuck rivers.
Yes, this is an item. Let me see if I'm getting the right
For
one for you.
$19,300.
Yeah.
While you're looking that up, Skookumchuck is misspelled.
The Skookumchuck.
So the Thurston County Emergency Management EM on the Community Planned Economic Development is also known as CPED, Stormwater Resources, participates annually in a cost share agreement with the United States Geological Services, USGS, for operations and maintenance of a streamflow discharge and a precipitation gauge on both the Deschutes and Skookumchuck rivers. This particular action requires $14,000 from CPED and $14,000 from emergency services and $5,260 from CPED for a total cost of $19,300. And this particular agreement will go from October 1st, 2018 to September 20, 2018. And this particular gauge is measures only water quantity. It does not have the capacity of measuring any water quality. Anticipating that question.
Good job.
Okay.
Any issues, comments?
Where's the money coming from?
Who's got the money?
Emergency services included in the budget, and I believe that is a general fund in CPED, the $5,260 coming from stormwater,
Stormwater.
the stormwater fee.
Why is the 14,000 coming out of the general fund?
Because emergency service is almost entirely funded by the general fund.
Yeah, but why isn't that stormwater? Why isn't that out of the stormwater budget? That's what it's directly related to.
This has been the split on the past history, how it has
Well,
been.
that doesn't mean it's right.
Well,
Is there any chance you can look into that before
yeah.
we get this?
The 20th of November?
Yeah. I think that is an eligible expense out of stormwater.
We'll look into it, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Any comment?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's my comment.
Okay. I'm going to go to 3E, which is emergency services again. And this one's the approval of corrected intergovernmental emergency medical services contract amendment number 1 for paramedical services.
So you approved this particular amendment a few months ago, and it was found that it was a slight error on the language in a couple of areas. The error includes the word lease and should have been EMS contract. May not be significant, but is significant in terms of this particular amendment. So that's the only error. This modification is before you.
Okay.
No
Any
money?
comments? Huh?
No money?
No, this is just correcting an error.
Mopping it up.
Okay.
Mopping up.
Good enough.
Or vacuuming, either one. 3F is from Central Services, and this is a contract amendment number 8 with Intercity Transit for the continuation of employee and volunteer bus ride services for the period of January 1st to December 31st of 2019 in the amount of $19,000 and some change.
Yeah, this is a yearly renewal of the agreement that we have the Intercity Transit, and what it does is all of the county IDs that we have, we can present that, and that gives a free bus rides to all the employees who use that. And that is a benefit that has been in place for quite some time, and the cost for this is $19,795.32. This is coming from the general fund indirect costs. No, non-departmental.
Non-departmental, yeah, sure. Oh, it has been.
Is that a cost just to have that availability, or is that because it's been used that extensively?
Actually, it's based
per
on
use cost.
Actually, it's based on usage.
Usage, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, good job then.
Yep.
So it's used considerably then.
We're actually seeing a significant increase, and we need to get a briefing on your agenda about the amount of the increase, because it's quite a bit higher than what we have in the proposed 2019 budget.
Well, in that briefing, I'd like to know how many employees are using it.
Right, we'll
Yeah,
we'll
that's
have those
good information.
counts, but we have information for
We've done
you.
it before.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good, thank you.
You have some? Okay, so remember, I'm going to be very picky on this, on
Yeah.
F. In the description portion,
So that'll be, I'm sorry, but that'll be before the 20th then?
We'll need
Yeah,
to
well-
get something on your
yeah.
calendar.
Okay.
in the description, I don't need to repeat what's already in the actions for is the January 1st through December and 19,000 to mop
Yep.
up the description.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So just describe it and then
Yep.
action it as
Yep.
in the normal format. So it's a minor, tiny thing. All right.
Thank you.
3G is the Auditor Financial Services, which is posted on the website. And so I'll move into department items. And the item number 4 is from the Public Health and Social Services. And it's 4A, which is a contract with the City of Olympia to conduct the point-in-time homeless count, otherwise known as PIT.
Yeah, this is becoming a yearly event in which is a yearly count of the homeless population that usually occurs in January of every year. And I believe all three of you participating in 2018. And this is just to go ahead and do the same strategy in 2019. And the cost is $25,000.
From where?
I believe that comes from the homeless fund. Is that? Yeah.
So we participate, and doing the census or the questionnaire, the questions are developed by Olympia, or who are the questions developed by?
I should tell you. How's it all work, the PIT?
The annual homeless census, also known as point-in-time count, is a requirement by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So HUD defines what kind of questions that all states and counties in the country follow, and that occurs on the fourth Thursday of every month. So it's
24th.
geared to be the coldest average day of the year, so it's a snapshot in time. Our local balance of state, which is a 33 county consortium in the state of Washington that we are a part of, further defines those questions. And so that survey is administered in accordance with what everyone else in our balance of state is doing and what is required by HUD. Furthermore, the city of Olympia last year included an additional count that they funded as part of a match to look at unsheltered populations in encampments and in doorways in the city.
So does the county have any input into the questions?
Yes, we do via the balance of state process, but as I said, the majority of those questions are defined by HUD, and then as our membership in the balance of state, each year we look at exactly how that information is collected and what type of questions are on there. But they're very standard questions. They're very it's highly regulated. There's questions like where did people last stay the night before, what the main causes of homelessness are, whether they're victims of domestic violence, but we protect the confidentiality of people that identify as domestic violence. There's a separate process for that.
My question is is not the information we gather, but defining the information, how it's defined. HUD provides guidance.
Yes.
They provide definitions.
Yes.
And they provide they provide questions as well.
Yes.
No big time.
But a jurisdiction can add questions, and then they can add their own definitions?
No, via the balance of state process, which Department of Commerce is our lead on that, the state has some input into how some of those questions are asked, but we don't, as a local county, we don't have an option to just add some kind of question that that we might be interested in. We can do that in other ways, and all of that information gets entered into the Homeless Management Information System, also known as HMIS, and so we can look at that. But the point-in-time count survey, it is designed to be not too onerous to those that we're administering the survey to. It's rather personal questions that we're asking, and so we like to ideally have those at generally pretty basic information so that we can get the most participation.
I question the questions, though. So not HUD's questions, but perhaps Olympia's questions. I'd love to see a questionnaire.
Olympia doesn't have any specific questions that they have added outside of what is standard across all the other counties.
They added something.
They have a separate program that's parallel to the HUD one.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's
So
not part of
parallel.
our contract,
That's
but
not
it
wrong.
is, I would say, an added benefit that Olympia is also putting in some of their own funds, because that helps us to further reach unserved populations that we may not normally reach in the regular homeless census methodology, because people go out into the encampments and into other areas of City of Olympia in particular to better reach those that are unsheltered.
So we are as part of our participation in the point in time, we are distributing also or using the Olympia questions
No.
or information?
That's
they're
a separate
Separate from us.
process, and volunteers.
Okay.
A volunteer team does that.
Although it does supplement or reinforce the HUD questionnaire process
Yes.
in some ways that's
Okay.
beneficial to us.
Messi, can you get a copy of those questions?
Oh yes, absolutely.
I'd love to see that. Thank
And you
you.
can participate too.
Yes.
Probably could.
Yeah, yeah.
My question is how, the definition specifically, I'm not trying to shroud this, is how they define homelessness, how they define whether someone's a local homeless person or not, and some of the definitions, because that's could skew data
So just
and
to
funds.
HUD very clearly defines that, the
Big time.
definition of homelessness, and then how, the question as far as how we determine where someone's last location was, for example, that's one where the balance of state has discussions every year as to exactly how you can form that question. Like, is it where you slept the night before? Is it your last residence? But generally, the information is specifically trying to find out where someone was before they became homeless, so we can track that.
Perfect.
And
So
that's-
idea is a set of HUD questions and Olympia's.
Yeah, yeah, it's two separates.
It gives us a better snapshot of the population, because, like I said, not everyone wants to participate in the one survey.
Yeah.
In the point in time homeless census, all of our providers that operate shelter and social services, they administer it, but it takes a really special care to reach people who may not otherwise be willing to take a survey that a government worker is asking them very personal questions.
Oh, I agree with that.
So
that would be helpful to me.
Yes. So last year, we were able to determine on the one point in time count night, we had, my gosh, I think I may not be able to say the exact number. I think it was 828.
815.
Something like that. I'll get you the exact number. But Olympia's complimentary additional count revealed hundreds and hundreds more of those living in encampments that didn't participate in their regular survey. So that gave us a better kind of idea of what our unsheltered population is like, and that helps us to address strategies to reduce homelessness
So
in our
in theory,
whole community.
Lacey, Tumwater, and anybody else could do their own supplementary based on, in addition to the HUD questions.
Yes,
Sure.
yes, but ideally we're working
That's
we're
what I
working
did.
together on it, and we're using the point in time process to
Do
to help
Lacey
everyone.
and Tumwater have a supplemental they're doing similar to Olympia's?
No,
No, they have not.
no, they don't. But they d- but
Hmm.
but there's broad participation in our
Okay.
homeless housing hub, which is our continuum of care. And so many people throughout Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater, Yelm, Tenino, Bucota are actively participating in this, and as are all the other counties and communities in the state. So that helps the state to put out a report to look at homelessness broadly as the entire state of Washington.
Yeah, go ahead.
And last year, I participated with community services at Rosie's place, dealing with the kids.
That was HUD.
It was very, very, very good and very touching. So anyway, that would help me, because it comes down to helping people, and it comes down to funding. And I just want to make sure funding is being appropriately diverted where it needs to be.
Yes, this is a requirement that we do this, and it also is an opportunity for us to provide outreach and support services to
Services,
those
too.
without housing. And so all of the locations that you volunteered and helped participate last year in the count will continue again, along with other events, so that we can support those experiencing homelessness.
All right, got two more questions, huh?
Well, can I finish up?
Sure.
Because we donate, or we help financially Olympia with the homeless, or they're asking for more funding for homeless and such. And I can imagine with HUD, they're going to come back with information that we have this kind of an issue or problem here. Olympia may come back and say, we got this kind of an issue and problem, which may be accurate. I just want to be sure it's accurate. That's where I'm coming from, is I want to be sure it all lines up, because it's going to cost the county some money, or could.
Good.
All the information is entered into the HMIS system, and so when that is, there's unique identifiers that don't have names, but can help us to ensure that we're not duplicating the count. So that gives us a broader picture. But again, it's one snapshot, one day of those who are willing to participate in the survey.
And it could be accurate. I just want to verify, validate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
My concern, last year I participated in this as well, and I was disappointed in our ability to verify answers. So I don't know how you would approach that, but the main thing I would be interested in is a very simple question like, where were you last year at this time, maybe? Now, whether or not we can verify that, but I think that question might get us a better answer as to how many people we're encouraging to come here through our treatment of homeless individuals. I'm all for being compassionate and helping folks, but I don't want to be enabling to where we're encouraging people coming from other jurisdictions. So can you come up with some type of a question that could ask, where were you last year?
There's
at this time?
not a question of where were you last year, but there is where was your last residence before you became homeless. And what we found in last year's survey is that the majority of people surveyed cited that they came from Thurston County. There was approximately 20% that came from other counties. And so we do have that information. And again, that HMIS system that everyone uses in the state and the country, it is designed so that we can see where we can kind of track where people have engaged in services and sheltering. So you can see that for those that are recorded in HMIS. And all of our county housing contracts require participation in the HMIS data system. So that gives us actually quite a lot of information regarding trends. As far as can we add a specific additional question of where were you last year as opposed to where was your last residence before becoming homelessness, or where did you sleep last night, because the HUD definition requires that part of the question of where were you last night. That is something that we could bring forward to the Department of Commerce balance of state question to balance of state group when they revisit the questions for next year to ask about that.
I'm not asking for anything in lieu of, just an additional question. Where were you last year at this time? It'll just help us to somewhat verify. Pretty benign question. I would think they'd be able to
Probably the
answer
Olympia version of
Yeah,
that.
the Olympia version, we won't be able to do anything on the state or federal questionnaire for this year, but for perhaps for the Olympia survey of unsheltered, that may be a question that they are interested in also. I don't know, but
They
I
would
will
be
certainly
interested
bring forward to them.
Okay.
You want to make a plug for the 24th of January and volunteers and coming out to help with PIT?
Yes, we will. It takes a great effort of our entire community to get involved. It's a really wonderful day because, like I said, we want to collect this data, but more importantly, we want to reach our vulnerable citizens that are experiencing homelessness and help them and connect them to services. So there will be many opportunities for people to get involved and to volunteer. That can be going out to actually conduct the survey. That can be volunteering at various sites and shelters, to giving out socks and food and giving haircuts. There's all different kinds of opportunities that will be available for volunteers, and we need a lot. And we know that we have typically this count. We know it's a snapshot, but it is vastly undercounted. We know that there are lots of people that we're not reaching, and there's more homeless people than we are able to reach. And this year we know that there's a very big increase, so we're going to need more help.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right, that gets 4A out of the way.
Thank you.
And 4B is approval of interlocal agreement with the cities of Lacey and Tumwater for specialized recreational services.
Yeah, this is a interlocal agreement for an amount of a combined amount of $8,377, where the city of Tumwater contributes $2,125, and the city of Lacey contributes the remainder. This particular agreement goes from January 1st, 2018 to December 31st, 2020, and the cities contribute to the county to provide services related to a specialized recreation to individuals with developmental disabilities. And Margaret is here if you have any questions related to this particular program.
We've done this before. Any question about the RC?
No, I don't.
Nope.
We're good.
Nope.
We're good, Margaret. All right, so we're going to move on to number 5, which is from Central Services, and it's the approval of the Municipal Research Services Center's shared rosters program and discontinue the use of existing Public Works, Central Services, and vendors roster.
Just to give you a little bit of a background.
Yeah, a little bit.
We, the county, conduct we hold a vendor list for small works individuals. And those small works is for small services that we get under 5,000 and without going through a formal bidding. So there is a series of vendors. They can file their qualifications to the county, and we maintain those lists, which has become burdensome in a way because there's not enough time to maintain that list. So this particular proposal is to get into an agreement with the Municipal Research Services Center, which is also known as MRSC, to share their roster because they do have a very sophisticated program, and we can piggyback on that approach. This particular item could save the county close to $6,000 a year. I believe that is the estimated amount. And the request for the commissioners is to go ahead and continue to use this particular service, MRC service.
Any comments, questions?
No.
Is there any dollar amount involved, or?
No, it will be on a case-by-case basis,
Oh.
meaning depending on the work, we just get the listing of potential vendors from this list,
Oh.
and depending on the work, we engage on individual contractual obligations with individual vendors. That
It'll
makes
be on a
sense.
Casey-by-Casey basis.
Casey by
Casey by
Casey
Casey.
by Martin Casey basis. I get it. Okay.
You will not be able to use that December.
Pretty soon, yeah.
January
No,
1st.
I know that. I had to get it out now. We're on the 20th.
Sure. I'm going to move on to item number 6, which is the, what is it?
Martin has a clarification from my statement.
Sure. Hello, Martin.
Good morning, Commissioners.
morning.
Martin Casey, Central Services Director. Not so much a clarification, but just an elaboration. Tomorrow, you're scheduled to have a full briefing on this proposal tomorrow morning. So I just wanted to let you know you will be getting quite a bit more detail.
Oh, okay. This is the 20th. We can,
Yeah.
sure. Okay, thank you.
Getting it on the schedule.
We'll wait till tomorrow. So item number 6 is from the Community Planning and Economic Development Department, which is a resolution extending resolution 15589, which amended land use and permitting fee schedule and established other procedures as mandated in state law regarding wells for domestic use. And Allison has that. So.
Yeah, and you have later on your agenda today, you had a briefing last Thursday, November 1st. And as you may recall, as part of the HERS fix by the legislature, it required the county to implement a fee of $500, which $350 is going to DOE, Department of Ecology, and $150 is kept here for the county to administer those requirements. And again, we'll provide you with additional detail item number 3 today in today's agenda. But just to give you an indication, when you authorized the fee, you had an end date of December 31st, 2018. So as a legislative authority which implements fees and charges, you need to take an action to continue with this fee later on. But again, we'll entertain for you additional questions here later on the agenda today.
Oh, okay.
This is a placeholder.
For the 20th. You got it.
Yeah.
Some more information coming up. Okay, so that concludes the main portion of the BoCC. And 5 o'clock on the 20th of November, we do have one public hearing. It is the public hearing for approval system of rates and charges for the Thurston Conservation District.
Yeah, and in this case, the only action that you may be considering is to close the public hearing. So we'll remove the second option on that. You will be, just to give you additional information for the public, the reason that you're holding this second public hearing on
Flip it over.
Thurston Conservation District rates and charges is because it was an administrative oversight from our perspective. We didn't properly inform the public as to the public hearing that you held back in September 25th, 2018. So at this point, we have done all the necessary steps to address the requirements. And the public hearing, second public hearing is scheduled again for November 20th at 5 in the afternoon. On November 21st, I already set aside an hour for you to discuss what you've heard as part of the public testimony. And I also will have proposed action, if that is the direction of the board, by November 27th, 2018. And that is probably the latest that you can probably consider taking an action to accommodate the work the county treasurer needs to do in implementing any taxations.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you going to mention the prior comments are going to be forwarded to this?
Yeah, those will be part of the public comment. And we, in the last September 21st, we had significant comments, close to 200. I will not go through each individual comments,
Right.
but I'll give you a summary of those comments as well as the summary of the new comments you have received. It well may be, there probably will be an overlap on the comments that you received from the same individuals, and that will be difficult to, separate, but I will give you the overall number of comments in support or against it, both in September 25th as well as November 20th.
Go ahead.
Are we having some discussion on that or VSP or something this morning yet?
No.
No, not
That I know of.
VSP.
Okay.
Any other comments on the post? Alrighty, so that brings us to a conclusion or closure for November 20th. Is there any final comments or questions from anybody? Looking around? Nope. Okay, so this clock does not say 11:13. It says 10:13, believe it or not. So come back at 10:25, and we'll take a small break. And
Let's
I'm
fix
going
the clock.
Can you fix that?
to move the agenda around to get some people through and some discussions to happen before the 12 o'clock period. So. Not turned on. You turned on? Okay, great. So we're back at the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session, and I'm on the main menu, the main agenda, if you will, and I'm going to start with the public hearing decisions pending, the briefing public hearing decisions pending. And number one is Conservation Futures Program, and it's the grant process. And we heard a briefing on November 1st, and we're going to try to make a decision today if there's no issue. So you want to give a little bit of background, and
Yep.
where is
In CPA.
Joshua?
Yep. And just to give you a little bit of background, there has not been a Conservation Futures Program in the last 2 years because you have set aside that potential revenue to address the purchase of the requirements related to the Highway Habitat Conservation Plan, HCP, as means to mitigate the impacts on the Mazama Pocket gopher. Through this process, you also had an interest in seeing how you can probably find a way that you can probably have a small program. Conservation Futures Program. As a result of that, there were two applications. They were funded years past. They didn't materialize in the purchase of those properties. And as a result of returning the funds that you allocated, or the board allocated on previous years, that generated just about $500,000. That is the $500,000 you directed the staff as to how they can probably go through the process of developing a small grant application process, which begins in January 2019. You heard a briefing in which from staff they provided some recommendations as to how they can probably add on the selection criteria something related to the Mazama Pocket gopher mitigation strategies, and that is part of the application criteria. Also, staff requested whether you have somewhat of a consideration to reimburse for administrative costs for unsuccessful projects. And as a result of that, if you consider delegating that authority administratively to the county manager, I believe. So those are the two decision points related to this, whether you like to go ahead and implement a Conservation Futures Program grant in 2018 for the dollar amount $500,000. And if you also agree to reimburse for eligible costs, for administrative costs, if any of those potential applications will materialize on a purchase of a land.
You have any questions on the reimbursement?
I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that, okay, what you're saying is that if we authorize an expenditure out of the Conservation Futures money and the entity moves forward and for some reason that falls through, but maybe they've had some surveying done or some other things that are going to cost something, that we're willing to continue with the authorization of that expenditure even though the project does not go through.
Yeah. Right.
That's what you're asking.
That is correct, because in some instances, you know, if a particular applicant, and what you will go through and approve the applications that may be within the $500,000 allocation. If you assign an applicant, let's say $100,000 to purchase in a specific land, it becomes a little complicated because they need to go ahead and agree on a price and purchase the land. And leading to that process, they need to conduct an appraisal, and they need to go a survey. So there is some administrative cost associated with that effort that I believe the county should consider reimbursing that if that particular transaction fails.
Yeah, I do too, but you mentioned something about the county manager.
Yeah,
was gonna be
so
allowed to
what
do
has happened, as you see, staff has brought to you some of the administrative costs so for some of those transactions that have failed. The proposal here is if you can consider delegating that authority administratively so we can avoid or we can eliminate time bringing that to you, to your attention.
Good.
That's what it is.
Would it be, so you would have the ability to do that and on a case-by-case basis, not a blanket, we will do it, but on a case, because there can be any number of things that derail a project.
Right.
And if there's anything other than some of the common ones, I wouldn't want to reimburse. tomfoolery. Well, I'm saying if something else happened, I mean, just outside of the real estate transaction and all that, if there's some type of, there's a number of applicants that could, I mean, people that could apply, or groups that could apply. If there was something done that was like negligent on their part, I wouldn't want it, if the deal falls through, I wouldn't want to reimburse them for that. That's just throwing good money after bad.
This came up 3 years ago.
Oh, did it?
Same thing. I was going to make a statement in here.
So as long as it's a case-by-case basis, not a blanket policy, well, no matter what, we'll reimburse you if the project doesn't go through. I think it's got to be scrutinized.
I think then that the policy that you adopt would have to be specific about when we would authorize reimbursement and when we would not.
That's right.
I
We
don't
do
think
not
you can
have-
address every kind of issue that might come
I don't
up.
have a policy per se.
So if I could jump in real quick, in the staff recommendation, the first bullet point kind of comes to this, this question and reimbursement for unsuccessful projects. First bullet point, the sponsor can adequately demonstrate the project failure was due to no fault of the project sponsor.
Right,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's good,
So that kind of allows for that question to be considered.
thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm okay with that.
on that, in the previous history, I'm looking at Andrew and some Robin, maybe Merrill, and I know that we went through this about 3 years ago with reimbursement issues, right? And I know they did not get totally reimbursed. I know that from memory. And so I don't remember the exact reason. Does it correlate with what he just said there to confirm it tonight? And one more thing, and then we only did a certain portion of the total dollar amount across the board, and that's kind of a precedent that's already set. So what am I asking is two questions there. Is there a precedent, and if that, what is that? And second, the wording correlates with what he said there as far as not being the sponsor.
Andrew DeFobis, CPED.
Sorry,
So there is.
I don't mean to look at him. I'm just. Yeah, I mean, I know he was sitting in the room with me. That's all.
Didn't recognize you.
Yeah, I didn't recognize you. Yeah.
There is a precedent for the board funding due diligence costs on unsuccessful projects. We don't have so there's no written language about the amount, the
No, there's
level
no
of funding. So it's just, we've simply entertained these requests, and it's been whatever the land trust has sought from us. And I think in the last couple that I remember, it is only a portion that they've sought, and that's because they were able to make up those costs elsewhere. But in all the cases that we've seen, and it's only been a few.
Yeah, it's only 3 or 4.
It's been, it's been based on typically the seller no longer wishing to sell the property. So the Little Fish Trap one, I think, is a really good example. Capital Land Trust, the landowner simply opted to sell to another party and no longer wished to continue in the conservation futures process. And that's typically what we see on that.
I think under the criteria that I'm hearing, we would have paid full cost on the project that I believe you're remembering, that we only paid partial.
Had it been successful, they could have asked for all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no formula for how, when we get those costs on any project successful or not, how much of those things they'll bill for.
And when they do, when they do request some type of reimbursement, then do they come in with justification for it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and if someone were to be, if the land trust were to be granted just pulling it off the top of my head, $300,000 for a specific deal, and it falls through, does that 300 come back and then reapplied, put out again for a project, or well, I'm going to hold on to 300,000 because I have another project here now that.
So typically, the way that the Futures program works, we award the money up front. We write a letter to the land trust and say, if the project closes by this date and under these conditions, this amount of money is available to you. We typically don't disperse that money until the end of the project. So the lion's share of the money goes out the door on the last day, and typically we deposit it into escrow, and then they purchase the property or purchase the conservation easement. Sometimes we do get an interim invoice halfway through the project. They'll say, hey, can you pay us for the appraisal that we've done already? We'd like to get some of those funds now. But typically we keep those monies in-house.
Okay.
But to answer your question, of that $300,000 project, let's say it fails somewhere along the way, it's not the land trust's fault, and they seek back $15,000 or something like that. Whatever we don't pay in those administrative costs would stay in the fund and is
Stays here, doesn't
available
get dispersed.
at
Got
the
it.
board's pleasure.
Right,
So-
Perfect.
you
Thanks,
approve
Andy. Thank you.
specific projects, not
That's what I thought.
here's
Good.
some money, pick your own project.
No, yeah. We don't
Yeah,
do
this
that.
failed, I'm gonna go just do
Yeah,
this.
no,
No.
that's why,
So he has a
Come back.
question, and we'll try to get to a somewhat reasonable answer.
Yeah, a direction.
Andrew, how does that work? And I don't have a history on it much, so I'll use a specific example. The Monarch thing that we got money back on, that basically it didn't go through. And I want to say we got 257,000. I thought that was the number, but maybe the outlay originally was 275. Maybe I'm just using this as an example. And where I'm going with this, we ended up paying for that assessment and possibly the survey that went along with it. So I don't know if we were the sole participants in contributing funding to that particular acquisition or not, but what I'm wondering about, if we were paying half of the cost and money was coming from somewhere else for the other half of a acquisition, is the cost of the survey and the assessment of value split between both entities that are contributing money? Is that how it's been in the past, or are we easy and we just kind of always kick it in? Has there been some process that way? Well, I mean, a lot of times government rolls over or something, you know.
You have a
It
reply?
varies. It varies depending on the project. Some award sources that a land trust might have to match the futures program money may not allow those costs to be reimbursed. It just depends. Futures is fairly flexible, so sometimes you'll see on the invoice the cost of those due diligence items because they can't bill it elsewhere. For the Monarch project specifically, I believe we were the sole funder for that, and the match that they provided for that was that they were going to donate a conservation easement or donate conservation on a larger portion of property. So they were matching with land, not with money. A couple of the other ones we've seen, for example, go back to the fish trap, they sought as much funding as they could from other sources, be it other grant awards or endowments or private donations, and only came back and asked for a fraction of the cost of those actual due diligence items. So it's really case by case. It depends on the mix of funding sources.
Can you understand where I'd kind of maybe want some verbiage in there to kind of cover that type of a split is all?
This is the same thing I'm going to say.
Well, and so I think to Andy's point, when we can, we will share administrative costs.
Okay.
But I wouldn't want anyone to expect full reimbursement. Not that I don't think there are times when there's applicable, but that's probably an exception more than the rule. You have any comment?
No.
So if I may, Commissioners, the first decision point for you will be for you to give direction to staff to entertain a 2019 grant process for the Conservation Futures Program for $500,000.
That's the exact dollar amount?
No, go for it.
I actually do have an exact dollar amount, so, and I'm going to
That was my question.
qualify it as such. If the board wishes to combine all the unspent funds from the Fry Cove Creek project and the Monarch Sculpture Park project and add all that money for the next round, it would be $503,669.50.
503,000?
Yeah, 503,669, and ultimately it's the board's discretion how much you wish to pony up, but that's the total of those two projects.
Would you want an even number?
I do want an even number. Yes, I am
would bet.
asking you for an even number. And I
Good.
have the
Okay.
financial plans here if you'd like to look at them.
No, I'm fine with that.
So there was a reason why I asked that question, but I don't have a problem going 500 rounded out either. But
And I'd like to add that the budget office helped with that number, so thank you, Robin.
The 22 cents.
Yeah, yes.
that's what I was worried about.
That's the financial.
So are you thumbs up on the 500,000?
Yes.
500,000.
Perfect.
Are you 500?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
And-
Thank you.
Now, the second decision point for you related to this item will be to develop a reimbursement criteria, and for you to consider delegating that approval of the administrative cost on the event that a particular transaction fails to the county manager.
Okay, can I have a question?
Sure.
I don't, where is it going to fit in the potential for mitigation benefit? That's already fitted into that 500?
Is included in the selection criteria.
Okay, so we've got that covered.
Yeah, that's covered.
Okay, well then I'm good with giving you the authority as well.
Okay. What is the policy on reimbursement then?
So what we'll
We do
we'll
not
bring
have a
back.
policy.
So
This
maybe
is not
what
a
we
good
could
thing.
probably hold the decision point. It may be ask staff to bring back with some language, and we'll bring this back on the 20th.
Sure.
For second point of decision.
Yeah, yeah.
Will that work?
There has to be some framework that
Okay.
everybody knows the rules, whether you like them or not.
That's
Okay.
good.
And I like the line you gave
Okay.
us, Josh, about due to no negligence or whatever on the part of the land trust or something.
Yeah, that's the staff's briefing.
Yeah.
And a legal review?
Yeah, and we do, there's, that language is in the briefing document from last week, but what we can do for the 20th is take this and the other pieces of the program that we know are not going to change or that the board has already authorized and put it in one document that we can then share with the project sponsors, have on our website, just provide more information about the program in general. And that's
Sure.
something we've wanted to do for a while, but with these pieces, you know, we can make that happen.
Okay, great. And can you just recap what the delegation entails? Is it just for reimbursements or?
It's just for reimbursement.
Okay, good.
And again, we'll bring back this decision point for you so you can feel a little more comfortable
Yeah.
as to what this reimbursement policy will be.
We're almost there. We just
Yep.
need a little bit
Yep.
more work on it. That's not a
So I'll bring back the second decision point on the 20th.
I think this is healthier to have a policy. than
absolutely.
what it is. All right. Yeah. You bet.
Thank you.
All right. The next one is, I'm going to jump to water availability. Is that also, yes, the water availability thing, the fee,
Yeah.
and then come back up to the comprehensive plan, mineral islands.
As a matter of background, the water availability goes back to the Hearst decision that all of us were in the position to do something. In January 2018, the state legislature came up with what we call the Hearst fix. Within that context, they developed a series of programs as to how the watersheds here in the county, which we call the WIRAs, we have 5 WIRAs here in the county, and each of the WIRAs had a little bit different limits as to how much allowable water could be used. And also within each WIRA has a different timeline as to when they need to come up with a mitigation plan. And that is another briefing that's coming your way later on. Within the context, the legislature also implemented a $500 fee for every single application for an exempt wells. And the $500 fee was split in 2 components. $350 was set aside to give back to the Department of Ecology to fund some of the projects outlined on the WIRAS plans that may be coming down the road. And $150 was set aside for administrative costs to process the exempt wells, because within the context, we needed to have a recording deed within each property to make sure that those limits are as stated on the property. So the board approved the $500 fee, and you set a deadline of sunset date of December 31st, 2018. With the caveat, the staff will come back to you and see how that fee is working, and whether the $150 fee is fully funding the administrative component or not. And you heard a briefing on November 1st last week. And so the decision for you in this particular case will be to consider extending the fee.
The $500 fee.
$500 fee. And also you may consider increasing the fee to cover some of the additional costs that perhaps are not covered.
Okay, so you have some information?
Thank you, Bruno. Yes, so I forgot to introduce myself last time. Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. That's exactly right on. The other piece I would say is this is in regards to the state mandated well fee that the staff put together on the Hearst last year in a quick and I would say very productive manner. The staff has implemented that fee over the past year for citizens that have come in. The Allison Osterberg, our staff here, recommended that or relayed that the 150 did cover administrative costs, but it did not cover the extra time that goes into the WIRA restoration program costs, the staff time into that. I would just like to continue to say thank you to our CPED staff for being able to be flexible and responsive to what the state legislature decided that they wanted to impose upon the county government, and we have done it. So,
Well said.
How we decide to move forward is
She used that line.
to this purpose.
Wow.
Took the words right out of it. No, took the words right out of our mouths.
Serve the citizens.
There you go.
Yep.
So, any comments or questions so far? I have one.
Well, other than I want to make it as simple as possible for the viewing public, that they know this is a mandate from the state. We don't have an option, one way or the other,
To a certain point.
if we're going to keep doing business.
Right.
You,
I'm sorry.
you do have an option to go beyond the 500.
That's my point.
Yes,
Right, that's what I
but we need to do the $500.
The extension at least, and then figure out, I have a couple of questions about the increased rate. But,
No comment yet.
okay, and then what would be, and do you have are you prepared to offer an increased rate, what that might look like, and when, and how, and all that, or is it too far into the, give me a chance to opt out if you don't have it?
I would say we are looking at those questions. I don't have a proposal.
A proposal,
for you
yeah.
to consider today. If you would like to increase the fee, we are in discussions with the Department of Ecology about some potential funding that would fund work to participate in the watershed planning processes. And my initial calculations, I don't think that would cover 100% the cost of the county, probably more.
Okay, so I am gonna,
And it's a little bit, I don't have what an alternative fee would be, but at a minimum, the staff recommendation is that you extend the fees and the recording requirements also on the properties for the limitations, because if we don't at least extend the fees, then we still would have to deliver those costs under the law.
so my question back to you or Josh is, with the increase rate that we're thinking of, how much time do you need before you come back with that proposal?
So,
A month, 2 months, 3 months, a
in
year?
terms of how much we think that it should be increased.
After you do some more, I'll say homework or data searching.
So here's the variables that we're dealing, so is the answer to the question.
Oh, well.
But here are the variables. It's how much time the staff is engaged in the water restoration programs for each one of the wires that we have, how much time is invested in the different logistics that go into that, and each one of the wires is going to have different.
Sure.
things
That's
to
why
it.
I'm giving you the option to say I need whatever number of months.
And then the dollar amount that we get from the grants. But here's the big piece is it's how much we think that the citizens can bear.
That's another aspect of
And
it.
so having that calculation is what we're working on. We want to provide an appropriate number, so we're
Okay,
working on
so a
that.
two-part question, extend today, or the proposal to extend the 500 to whatever time frame, I don't know what that would be, and then how much time you would need would correlate with the increase until we move from a 500 to whatever that is, so it's a two-part piece there, so.
So
And Robin has a question.
you need to take a formal action. So right now it's on the November 20th.
Okay.
Where you may consider taking a formal action. So at that time on November 20th, we'll bring that information to you to whether you like to maintain the $500 fee or consider a little bit higher.
Oh, I don't know what that would be. Okay.
But just a matter of clarification is not necessarily about it's just covering the cost of participating on the different WIRAs, but it is also Allison is the one who's representing the county in all that effort.
Yeah, I know.
And what I said, she has a day job, and we cannot clone Allison. So really, it's going to be more looking holistically. It's not about covering the cost, but also looking holistically as to how the workload needs to be managed as we move along in this state mandate.
And I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I do have a question, and it is, if you are considering, I guess the question is, are you considering increasing revenue at this time to support this program? Because if you are, then by law, we must include that information in the revenue hearing on November 27th, and I need the information immediately.
Y'all need to talk. No, they got questions. It's a good point.
Now, the state mandated 500 fee.
Thank you.
And statewide, We're just looking at what the increase would be over $150, because no matter what, the state scrapes off 350 all around the state for every permit. They get 350. Department of Ecology gets that, right? So we're looking at just the increase for our community, for our citizens, our county. But that won't, the state doesn't get their hands on any of that.
That's correct. I would just say that that 350, the way that the legislation set it up, it does go to the Department of Ecology, but the ecology doesn't use it for anything. It is to be used for projects in the watershed where it has been collected.
Okay. Oh, good, good, good. That's good information.
Good question.
Yeah. I would contend that the legislation allows for that expenditure of whatever that project might be, especially the Nisqually issue, where we're under the time frame to get something done quicker. I'd like to explore if we can't get a piece of that $350 back that we're sending to the state to cover our expenses in dealing with that constricted time frame on the Nisqually WIRA. I don't know if it's available or not, but before we go to our taxpayers and ask for more money, we're already imposing a state fee right now at a minimum of $500. So before we go to the taxpayers and ask for more, or the applicants, however you want to put it, I'd like to explore every other option that possibly we can get some of that money back to cover some of these costs, additional costs.
Yes, definitely. And that is one of the variables that I discussed in the grants that Allison is seeking from Ecology. Ecology is supporting financially that administration, some of that administration, but not.
So I'd say we'd be premature to talk about putting that in as a revenue source or something in the budget.
If you're going to increase fees, this is the time to do it along with your budget. So if not now, then we're talking about a year from now.
Yeah, possibly. This is all brand new stuff, and I don't want to put a load on the citizens that we don't have to if we've got a funding source elsewhere.
And this is an option for you, and you can certainly provide direction and just bring the item for the 20th just to extend the $500 fee.
Right?
Sure.
But you said it well. It's not the citizens, it's just applicants.
Yeah.
So
For
that certainly is within your purview. Now they're listening to all the different dynamics that is going on. Perhaps it's premature for you to consider an increase on the fee at this point.
Could be.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so we'll figure it out on the 20th.
The important, also the first decision on the extension is really the important part for CPAD to keep moving.
Yeah. And us too, yeah, I got you. Okay, do you need that on the 20th? Okay, sure. All
I
right.
have tentatively on the
Yeah.
agenda.
We got a little bit of day. We got a few days. Anything else, Allison? Nope. Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on to comprehensive plan, mineral lands, parks, and preservations. We had a briefing on November 1st. And so we're back to make conversation and discussion, guidance, maybe a decision.
Yeah, so let me take you back maybe to early 2017 when the Board of County Commissioners approved the scope of work for the items to be included in the comprehensive plan amendment. One of the items was to develop a map related to the mineral lands, because the map it was currently in the record doesn't really address the new needs. Through the process, staff secured the services of a consultant, which went through and developed a map of available mineral lands in Thurston County. The next step the staff took the existing county code and applied to the map this consultant developed. Through that process, the county code that was last updated, I believe, was early 2000s, included a 1,000-foot setback. That map was reflected, including the 1,000-foot setback. That was sent to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission reviewed that particular map, including a 1,000-foot setback, and the recommendation of the Planning Commission was for the commissioners to approve that map, including the 1,000-foot setback. That conversation occurred, and staff brought to your attention that particular matter, including other options. And the conversation began, I believe, late May on this particular matter. And they included the options. One is to accept the recommendations of the Planning Commission to include, the map as presented to you, which included the 1,000-foot setback. Option number 2 was a modified Planning Commission recommendation. And option number 3 was to eliminate the 1,000-foot setback from the county code. Back in, after a few weeks of conversations and deliberations, on July 24th, 2018, the majority of the board provided direction to staff to move forward with option number 2. And option number 2 included the 1,000-foot setback with modifications. The modifications that you requested was the staff needs to come back to you with the definitions as to what parks and preserves are, which that has an influence on the 1,000-foot setback. And also, the modifications option number 2, as the majority of the board approved, included a policy, the decision that you will make down the road as to what other activities you would like to include in the 1,000-foot setback. So that will take us to the point of last Thursday, November 1st, which staff brought to you 2 options, option number 1, option number 2, related to only parks and preserves. And the option number 1 included 38 parks, and option number 2 included 28 parks. That resulted on available mineral lands designation on option number 1 of 142,605 acres, and under option number 2 as 143,309 acres. And you may recall you have in your packet this table that defines that particular option. So since last week, we have received some public testimony, which is included in your packet, some written testimony, and one from let me get to that point. From the Nisqually tribe, which is urging or encouraging the board to include the reservation boundaries to be part of the 1,000-foot setback. You also get a letter from the Nisqually Land Trust. They encourage you to include the land trust as part of the 1,000-foot setback, meaning the land trust should be designated as such and should have a 1,000-foot setback. And you also receive a letter from the Sierra Club, which is Ms. Phyllis Farrell, and also an email from her. Also, including you, strongly encourage you to include the land trusts as part of the parks designation. So that will take us to the point, to this juncture. At this point, really is not a formal decision, because the formal decision will be coming to you down the road as part of the overall comprehensive plan, but really it's just to provide a direction to staff based on the staff has proposed in terms of option 1 and option number 2. Through the process on both options, options number 1 and option number 2, staff recommended the preserves will be taken out of that designation because doesn't meet the definition of parks as we.
Land trust.
Land trust. Thank you. It was land trust. So, and again, at this point is asking the board as to what options you would like to give the staff direction, whether it's option number 1 or option number 2 related to parks and preserves.
All right.
Did I miss anything?
Good job.
Uh-uh.
That was a lot.
That was a lot.
So we have a question, and perhaps him and me.
Having not sat in on those discussions that you've had with other folks that are concerned on this whole thing, some of the groups that have sent in comment, industry folks, and reflecting back on the Growth Management Act. The Growth Management Act pretty much says, and that's kind of what we're working under, is trying to get this done under the Growth Management Act, encourages growth in the urban core and discourages growth in rural America. Was there any thought given to, as this 1,000-foot buffer is around all of these particular entities, that it would prohibit that type of activity? So if a landowner owned 200 acres or something, and it's in close proximity to one of the restricting groups, whatever we end up with in that area, and if it's not good farmland, and it doesn't have good topsoil, but it does have good gravel available on it, and we restrict that individual from using it, was there any discussion how that actually promotes, contrary to the Growth Management Act, where the citizen might say, well, geez, if I can't use it for this, which I had intended it for, I might as well develop it and make it into 10-acre tracts or whatever. And then, because we're trying to fix something under growth management, in reality, we're causing more of a problem by kind of taking away an option and encouraging rural sprawl, I guess. So did any of that ever come up in any of your discussions?
So let me start by first saying, in the reference to the discussions that you're referring to, the board directed our staff to engage citizens of a broad range of opinion on this topic. And so our staff did do that, and we held multiple meetings, multiple hours to engage folks from the industry as well as folks from environmental groups and citizens that were interested as well. And so within those different conversations, a myriad of perspectives were provided to our staff. That's how we came up with these options, option 1 and option 2. In regards to your GMA question, I'll pass that over to Allison.
Sure.
Commissioner Evans, as you indicated, that's exactly right. Under the Growth Management Act, what we are charged to do at the county is to balance these different goals, and sometimes those things come into conflict with each other, and that's the prime thing that we do when we plan under our comprehensive plan is to look at balancing these different goals. One of the goals in the Growth Management Act is conservation of natural resource industries, which includes agriculture, forestry, fishing, and mineral lands, is what we're focused on here. And we did talk about that in the groups. The mineral lands update is a piece of the comprehensive plan update, and it's a piece of that natural resource industries goal. And what we're doing is trying to balance the charge from the Growth Management Act to conserve natural resource industries, including mineral lands, along with doing all the other things we're charged with doing under the Growth Management Act, such as reducing sprawl and protecting natural resources, environmental resources, and having a variety of different housing and transportation and all of the things that we have to do under the and conservation of the mineral resource industry and having resources so that that industry can continue in the long term. That's the piece that we're focused on as part of the mineral lands update. Yes. So we did have that discussion in the stakeholder group about where this falls within growth management planning. But that at the county, the folks in this group are very interested in this piece of it. But for you as decision makers, you're weighing all of these different goals for GMA.
Any talk at all about the carbon footprint that might be necessary for hauling a resource? Okay, so if we can't have that resource close by an urban area where there's going to be development activity, I guess, and we force that out somewhere else, I don't know where that is, but then that also is kind of contrary to what we're trying to do when we're trying to eliminate that carbon footprint, I guess. So it kind of forced the trucking, if you will, and then you got infrastructure that you're, you know, heavy trucks on limited roads and all such. I mean, was all that taken into consideration, I guess, as we move forward with this?
So there's been lots of general, broad conversations about mineral lands and this topic. It was my direction as the director of CPED to staff to keep this discussion with the community group narrowly focused on the charge at hand, which was water parks, and which should have the 1,000-foot setback or separation applied to it. So yes, those conversations have been had, but for this decision point on the table now, I asked for a very narrow conversation.
I guess following up maybe on what Josh said, I think we still need more than a 10 or 20-minute discussion on such a confounding, I guess, situation that is conflicting from a couple different areas. So I don't think I'm ready to give that direction at this point in time myself.
Looking at options 1 and 2, which is the narrow focus of this briefing, the state mandates that we have the resources, maintain the resources for mineral lands, for aggregate and such, to have sufficient resources for roads and such, yeah? And so when I look at these two options, one is more restrictive, one's less restrictive. But that gives kind of a false, I think, image, because when I look at the difference between the acres of designated lands, there's only 704 acres difference. When I look at the number of parks excluded from mineral lands designation, 10 parks difference. And when I look at the total acres removed due to parks, 704 acres. It doesn't seem that huge of a difference to me in my head. I am sufficiently confident that we're protecting habitat and parks and such, and so I would opt, just based on these two options, I would opt for the least restrictive so folks can do what they need to or want to do with their property, but also ensures that we have the capability to maintain for population growth in this county over the next 50 years or 100 years and have the resources to maintain that we're mandated to maintain.
Okay.
And I guess I'm following up on that. I just wonder if one of those options can't be a mitigation maybe of that 1,000-foot buffer. I know we've talked about that in the past, but I just think it entails a deeper discussion before we move into this. I know I visited a property recently, and the owner laid out a 1,000-foot buffer around potential restrictive areas, and out of 200 and some acres, you know, he's left with about 46 or something or less that was usable. The rest of it's not usable. So if we were to purchase maybe the development rights on that through some kind of a conservation easement, everybody comes out good. I don't know if we have the resources to do that, but we're talking about some pretty valuable resources that individuals could have on their properties. And like Commissioner Hutchings said, we want to protect the environment. At the same time, we're protecting the individual to use their property. So I guess I'm just not quite there yet, I guess.
Romero?
No, and I respect that. To answer your question, Commissioner Edwards, let me take you back to the July 24, 2018 decision of the majority of the board, which included the modified recommendation by the Planning Commission, which maintaining the 1,000-foot setback, and there was two modifications within that decision. One was the definition of parks and preserves, which staff has presented to you. And the step number 2 that is coming later is what activities the board would like to allow within the 1,000-foot setback. And I believe that's what you're referring to, because under the narrow scope, the staff is presented to you in option number 1 and 2 is only dealing with parks and preserves. The additional activities that you would like to allow, that will be a policy decision that you may consider down the road, and you have the flexibility to include any type of activities that you would like to allow with the 1,000-foot setback. So that was the two-step process as a result of the decision that you made on July 24, 2018.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you there. I mean, I realize we did that, but I don't think I'm quite ready. I think we need more than a 20-minute discussion about how we're, and I know we've had several 20-minute discussions or maybe even half-hour briefings. I think at some work session, we really need to kind of delve into this and see what kind of an overall impact are we putting on our citizens. And it sounds like your example makes sense, that if we would allow, but then on the other hand, are we truly protecting the environment if we did it that way versus have a number as part of the setback, and currently it is 1,000. So, I mean, but could we still protect the environment at a 200-foot setback? And there's things in there like where there's a roadway or a rail activity, the setback that is required for an activity extends clear over on the other person's property, which without clarification there, I see that we end up with some problems, and I'm just trying to play chess here a little bit instead of checkers. Yeah. I want to get down the road just a little bit and spend a little more time on
certainly.
this. I know we're kind of kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to rush the commissioners to make a decision, because you need to have all the available information before you make an informed decision. I do have to, bring to your attention is the reason as to why this came to you for direction is we're trying to follow, staff trying to follow the direction of the board to have the comprehensive plan amendment done as soon as possible. And we continue to have those conversations, and I agree, I mean, that's entirely up to the preview of the board. We continue to have a delay on the delivery of the comprehensive plan. And as you know, we had issues with the Department of Commerce early in the year, which we're able to resolve it. But we as a county, as an overall, we have an obligation to have a comprehensive plan update be completed as soon as possible. So I agree with your saying, Commissioner Edwards, but I'd like to put caution to the commission as to how much information do you need and how much time.
I got to make it quick. I got to wrap it up. I got two more things.
Okay.
Could I just frame this for you for the decision? I totally hear the board's desire to have a broad and wide-ranging discussion about mineral lands. And we as staff are very eager to have that as well. And just understand that that's not what, we're not looking to squash that today. This is a technical question about how we define parks when we're creating a map of mineral lands. And we can't create that map if we don't have direction in knowing which things count as parks. So that's really the only question we're looking to have answered today. All the discussion around what activities happen within 1,000-foot separation distance or about mineral lands in general, we will have as part of the comprehensive plan update. But in order to get there, we need to know, are we making a decision on what we're considering as a park or public preserve? And that's the discussion that you guys could solve that today, and we can move forward to discuss all the rest of the other unknowns and questions and variety of inputs on mineral lands.
Go ahead.
I guess one of the things you mentioned is the fact that we have had problems in the past, and that's a compliance issue. And undergrowth management, the mandate is to strive to achieve whatever goal we're working on. And I think that was came into play here on this last incident we had with Commerce. I guess, and as part of that striving to get it right, I'm attending meetings with the Ruckelhaus group that the legislature has asked county associations to participate in, to point out deficiencies where we have conflicts within the Growth Management Act. And we're trying to fix those conflicts at several different levels. And for me, it just, it doesn't make sense to rush it as long as we're working to solve it. That's kind of where I'm at. And I'm not quite sure that I'm even ready to say at this point what a park designation is. I mean, we have a lot of options that, is it a bare piece of land? Is it the old railroad route that's now paved? Is it a conservation group that's got something set aside? Is it a piece of raw property?
I gotta go back to him.
State owned. So
Anything else?
that's kind of
Just
where
the
I'm
two
at.
options for designation of parks are option 1 and 2? 2 is least restrictive by 10 parks?
Also, we talked about the terminology. The 2 has less parks.
Yeah, 10 fewer parks.
Protects fewer kinds of parks now and in the future.
I can give direction.
I'm not ready.
You're ready or
I
not?
can decide now, but if we're going to put it off for a more intensive briefing, then I'm okay with that too, but I'm ready to move on if we don't have that option.
Sorry to interrupt, but so to Allison's point, it's going to be hard to have that next level of conversation
Without
without
this.
knowing what map you guys want us to bring.
Right, you need a map.
Yeah.
Bottom
Well-
line, bluff is you need a map.
We need to do a map. We're ready to do a map. We want to hit go.
So I look at these 2 maps that are attached, and they're virtually the same.
Yes.
Pretty close.
I'm not ready yet.
Okay, so we're gonna hold. But I need you to get on my calendar for Thursday or Friday so that I can get back into the mainstream conversation of this. I lost a couple of nuggets in terms of some of the things I've been doing the last couple of weeks. I want to know some specific details, so.
So I will bring that again on
But we're
November
gonna move on
20th.
it fast.
20th?
So,
November 20th.
well, good, 'cause if you get Thursday or Friday, we'll make something about it November 20th.
Okay.
Maya, Allison, thank you.
Yeah, thank
Josh,
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll get there. Hang on, it's coming. I know it's painful.
Can be.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the agenda. And I'm going to jump to commissioner items. And either 1 or 3 are going to be first and second. So is the public defense, and then we'll move on to solid waste letter. Is that all right, Jennifer? Then,
We're working solid waste now.
no. This is public defense letter.
Okay.
Office of Public Defense, update ordinances, informational.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'll try to keep it brief.
Yeah, Patrick.
What you have before you today is a draft of our current ordinance for public defense.
What you introduce yourself? Or?
Pardon, yes, Patrick O'Connor, Director of Thurston County Public Defense. What the board has before it this morning is a draft of essentially an update to our local Thurston County ordinances for public defense and delivery of public defense services. A little bit of background on the current version of public defense services under our ordinances are from 2008. The effort here is to update those ordinances to comply with the state Supreme Court standards for indigent defense that were adopted in 2012. We just haven't updated our ordinances to reflect those changes. So the draft before you does just that. I've vetted this through Civil Division of the Prosecuting Attorney's Office. It's 21 pages, so I'm not going to go through all the changes. A lot
Thank
of them
you.
are minor, but I'll highlight a couple of the more major changes. Specifically, the reflection of the caseload standards that have been adopted by the state Supreme Court in 2012. Those aren't reflected in our 2008 ordinances because they didn't exist at the time. So that's one of the major changes you'll see in these changes. In addition to case weighting and the policies of the state Supreme Court's standards for indigent defense as they apply to case weightings, those are reflected in the new ordinances as well as the requirement to investigate cases. So those are some of the highlights. It's just been honestly over the past 12 months something that I've chipped away at, and I'm trying to start as soon as I can, hopefully next year at some point. Work with the county manager. I know this is a process. We might not get there before the first of the year, but I at least want to have this informational briefing to start the process so our department can have up-to-date ordinances and this county can have up-to-date ordinances on public defense that reflect the state Supreme Court standards. I think it's a square fit right in Initiative 10 too. I'll highlight that. Initiative 11 really is a public defense champion for criminal justice reform, but I think this really fits more in line with my initiative as well, which is to ensure equitable, bless you, access to the legal systems, its program and services. As the board is aware, public defense is a mandatory service the county must provide, and so these ordinances, this update reflects the mandate by the state Supreme Court for public defender services.
Comments?
That's it, in 21 pages?
There's
Oh, an attorney.
keeping
Okay.
it, yeah, I'm gonna try to do my best to limit my words. but,
Saved a whole bunch of room here.
Yeah, what some counties can do for reference, the reason why it's 21 pages, some counties have just adopted by reference or incorporated the state Supreme Court standards by reference. I thought it would be better to spell it out, not just for our department and for the board, but for our public, so they know exactly what the standards are. And the current versions did just that. They're just outdated. So really, all we're doing is updating the language.
Okay,
Beautiful.
go ahead.
I don't want to question your ability on drawing this up, but did our legal counsel work in conjunction on this whole thing so it's ready to move forward?
Yes,
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, Commissioner. What you have before you is my draft. That draft has been sent to Civil Division and reviewed. Scott Cushing and I have been working on it together. He has all the edits of the original ordinance and the current draft, and that's why it's before you. It's been vetted.
Okay, I'm with you.
So with your concurrence,
Thank
I'll work with Patrick to bring an AIS for you to consider setting a public hearing. This requires a public hearing. And
Excuse me, it requires a public hearing to do what?
to
Policy.
change county
Okay.
code.
Code.
Okay. Just part of that bureaucracy.
Not coming out of the general fund.
Yeah, okay.
No, it's part of allowing the public to provide some testimony
guess,
before you
yes.
make a decision.
Okay.
And so, question for Patrick. I don't think it's going to be doable to have this before the end of the year.
Understood.
Oh, you don't want it on the 27th November? Might as well throw it on there. Make it number 8.
Smorgasbord.
Yeah. I'm
I don't
serious.
think we have enough time to.
Okay, I do have just one real quick thing.
Sure.
What about Defense Council? Did they participate in this at all, or is this strictly regardless of what they want to do or say, or what's the deal?
Well, I can tell you, from my understanding, the state Supreme Court updated the standards for indigent defense based on empirical evidence done by attorneys. So as I highlighted, one of the bigger changes you see from the old ordinance to the new ordinance is what the maximum allowable cases are for a defense attorney. And that was done through an empirical study by the state Supreme Court and the State Office of Public Defense. I actually participated in that in a limited fashion several years ago. And so, yes, in that capacity, they did.
I just really, real quick. My concern here as we move forward, are we painting ourselves into a corner somehow that by adopting what you're presenting, then we got to go back to the budget and say, well, we can only have this kind of a caseload, so we got to hire, 2 more.
But it wouldn't matter because it's state law anyway.
Well,
Right.
but there might be a little wiggle room. I don't know if there's wiggle room. I don't
now.
know.
He's already practicing the state law. I mean, it's part of his
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
He's already, and this is just to align because the county code is outdated.
Okay.
It's just to update the county code.
Well, I don't have any expertise in the field, so.
It's a fair point, but we've been striving to comply with those state Supreme Court standards because they are the standards. It's just our local ordinances have lapsed.
I do think you've developed a lot of credibility here in the county, and your word's worth a lot. So.
All right, so not 27 November?
I don't think we have enough time to properly notify the public for the 27th.
Oh, okay.
And we discussed this, we waited this long, I can wait till after the first of the year.
Oh,
But
We
if
could do
there's an
December.
opportunity, if there's an opportunity in December, we'll
Sure.
we'll work.
All right.
Whole evening yourself.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Patrick. Come on back. Next, we're going to cover the solid waste letter from the Utilities and Transportation Commission. And we have Monica and Jennifer, and who else? Just two? Okay. Is this,
Hello, Commissioner.
you wanted to frame it real quick, Romero, or are you all ready to go with it?
A couple of weeks ago, you received a letter from the Utilities and Transportation Commission, and this is related to recycling activities. And the recycling activities are related to, somewhat of a worldwide issue that we're currently dealing with, because one of the major buyers of recycled materials from not just the state, but across the country is China. And China decided to stop receiving those recycled materials. I mean, we can go and have a conversation as to why that happened. So as a result of that, the Washington State Transportation Commission is trying to put some restrictions as to how the recycled materials could be implemented across the state, which is are affecting our utility, meaning our solid waste.
Okay.
So staff is here just to walk you through what the details of that letter is. And at this point, there is not a decision point for you, but certainly walk you through as to what steps we're taking, not just as a county, but as a state, to address this.
Sure. And before you start, Monica or Jennifer, I don't think you'll make it to 10:45. No, that's the correct now.
That's right.
So 11:45, I got to stop because I have a closed session I got to have for 15 minutes till. So just you have the floor, but I'll just let you know it could go that long. So.
I will make this brief.
Okay, sure.
For the record, my name is Monica
Can you
Gorman.
pull the microphone closer to you? Sorry.
Sure. For the record, my name is Monica Gorman, Thurston County Solid Waste Manager. And as Romero said, we are here to brief you on a letter that was sent to the commissioners from the Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission. And that letter dated October 18, 2018.
Do we have a copy of that letter? Do we have it?
It should be included in your packet.
What we have in the packet is this.
So it came to the office 2 weeks ago. So
Okay, we don't need it right here to discuss this.
I'll
probably,
make
do
sure
we?
that you get a copy of that.
Fine, okay. Excuse me, go ahead.
That letter was sent to all local jurisdictions in the state. So that's, I think, of primary importance that you understand. All local governments received this letter. The contents of the letter was the same. And it essentially outlines the agency's concern for increasing costs related to processing recyclable materials. Now, the UTC regulates companies that collect trash, and they approve the rates that these companies can charge. So solid waste collection in the state of Washington is regulated like a utility. And this year, the UTC has approved rate increases for collection of trash and recycling throughout the state. And these rate increases in Thurston County are around about 5% for residential customers. The UTC is stating in this letter that these cost increases are largely due to depressed commodity prices for recyclable materials, and these hauling companies have to pay more to have these materials processed. So they have identified certain recyclable materials that may have little monetary value. So the UTC has identified a list of materials. They've asked us to look at those. And of those materials that the UTC identified, only glass is one of the mandatory materials in Thurston that must be collected. And currently, our certified hauler, which is Waste Connections and its company Pacific Disposal in Lomé, do have a local outlet for glass. So of the
For glass?
materials-
Did you say glass?
Yes. And so of the materials identified in this letter, we only mandate recycling of glass, and that material has a market in the county. Moving forward, we will continue to partner with the City of Olympia and the collection companies, and essentially we'll be following the mandatory recyclable materials and whether there are markets for those materials. If the city or the haulers request changes, those changes will go to the Solid Waste Management Planning Committee, the SWAC, for review and comment, and then they would move forward to the board. but we are not recommending any changes at this time.
All righty. What you got?
The whole thing here is that we can't sell it because it's dirty trash now, right? I mean, referring to what? Dirty diapers or plastics or the wrong kind of materials in the trash, so we can't get rid of it? Is that what's going on?
No, the issue is recyclable materials that are collected curbside. So what the collectors are picking up in those blue bins, those materials used to go to China, about 40%.
Yes.
And China has now closed its markets. And so we're essentially generating more recyclable materials than we have markets.
But isn't the reason they quit taking it because the trash is dirty, it's got the wrong stuff in it? No?
In part,
No.
yes.
In part, yes. Okay, now I'm getting mixed messages
I think
here.
that was the conclusion, but I think it was related to a very scathing report that a news outfit here in the country, U.S., made of how they manage their recycling materials in China. So it was more of a reaction to, from my point of view, humble point of view, more a reaction of that report than actually.
But that isn't what we heard at a briefing here a while back, is it? Didn't we hear something from a briefing we had here? Several people from the waste collection business, and they mentioned the dirty trash, wrong pop bottle lid, and dirty diapers. And maybe you were not here for that.
Well, we don't recycle dirty diapers.
Well, no, I know we don't, but I think that was the objection, I thought, from the trash people. Am I having a pipe dream here, or did?
No, you're not. There was a briefing to this commission on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and several Solid Waste Advisory Committee members did speak at that time, and that is one issue that they did speak about. So your recollection is accurate. This is slightly different. This has to do with these haulers are collecting these recyclable materials in the blue bin, and they used to be able to sell those materials to a local materials recovery facility. And now they're having to pay to take those materials to the recyclable center. And because that commodity no longer has as much value, that impacts the costs. And so the collectors are passing those costs on to the customers. Now, there is an issue with why China closed its markets. And in part, it is because the materials weren't clean enough. So we were sending, say, mixed paper, and the mixed paper bale had contamination in it. So when you say dirty diapers, that might be part of that contamination.
Okay, I just used that.
But
okay.
the specific issue the UTC is addressing is the collectors are required to collect recyclable materials. Those materials don't have the same value as they used to, and so those cost increases have to be passed on to the customer. And what are we doing as local?
He has this stuff also.
I just have a quick follow-up.
You said there's glass value to Thurston County, yeah?
There's a
Glass
market.
Did you say
doesn't
that?
have value, it's less expensive to
Oh, okay.
take that for recycling
But there's a
than
market.
it is to dispose of it as trash.
Okay, yeah, I have a private carrier, a company that picks my junk up. I've got a
Yes.
blue bin, a black bin, garbage, yard waste, and plastic. But I don't have a glass bin. So I have to haul it out myself, and I don't know why they don't pick up glass.
They should be picking
They should
up
pick up
glass
glass.
once every 4 weeks.
Once a month.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's why I haul it out.
That's part of your service.
Yeah, okay.
Can I follow up?
Thank
Yeah.
you, Monica, thank you.
It's my understanding that, now, we mandate that people recycle glass? We, the county, or the
We-
state?
The state requires local jurisdictions to have diversion programs for certain materials, glass being one of those materials. So I believe it was about 1991, in response to that state mandate, the county passed an ordinance that outlined what recyclable materials our collectors would pick up. And glass was one of those because we have to meet our state.
But
mandate.
I understand that glass, it's not cost effective to recycle glass. Is that true or not?
Thurston County, it is cost effective to recycle glass because we do have a location. Nationwide, I would say your comment is true. So nationally, recycling glass has always been very difficult. And if you don't have a local market for it, it's typically disposed, not recycled, because it's too costly to transport. We are fortunate there is a location in Tumwater that will take glass, and they are currently taking the county's glass.
So we don't need an adjustment to an ordinance that was passed in 1991 or something. That's kind of where I'm going with this. Do we need to update our requirements on citizens or what if it's something that's
She's not saying that.
counterproductive? Yeah, I'm just trying to figure this out. I've been told that glass is not cost effective, but if we're doing it here locally, good. That's fine.
Okay, anything else?
No.
What do you need is for?
No action. It was
Okay.
just to make you aware of this letter, and a follow-up briefing will come up later after we have additional information as to the next steps.
Thank you.
Anything else, Jennifer?
Not on this item.
Okay, sure.
I think we're.
Stick
Are
around, we
you
got
in
other.
for executive session?
No.
I had two other items on
Oh.
this meeting.
We may or may not get to them, so.
Okay.
mhm.
Oh,
Let's move to November 20th.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
So there's number 2, which is the Public Works Winter Preparation and the BNSF Chehalis Trail Project.
What, you have 5 minutes, Jennifer?
Jennifer?
Pick one of the two items, 5 minutes.
Oh, which one do you want to talk about? Yeah, that's great. I like that one.
Yep.
We got about a few minutes, but we'll get you through.
We'll do a very brief.
Sure.
Because that's what it is anyway.
I like the brief.
We have already.
Who are you?
Rick Thomas with Public Works. We've briefed the commissioners a few months ago on this project. Wanted to just let you know of the status of the agreement between Burlington Northern and the county. It's gone through 2 review cycles of both legal groups, and Burlington is now working on putting together the final draft for final approval and signature of both parties. I did want to bring to your attention 3 particular items in that agreement that are going to be long-term liabilities. And I don't say that in a negative term, but just to make sure that you're aware of them as part of this contract. So in the future, the county may be required to reimburse BNSF under the following 3 scenarios. And if you have your briefing paper there, it's down towards the bottom of the first page. We would be responsible for maintenance of the bridge. Secondly, we would be responsible for track surfacing due to settlement by the construction of the bridge for a period not to exceed 2 years from the date of the final inspection. And then the third would be, we would be responsible for reimbursement to Burlington if changes, alterations, widening, or reconstruction of the bridge to accommodate future railroad projects came about. These are very standard with Burlington, and again, we just wanted to make the commissioners aware of that before the final agreement came, in case there was any sort of concern that you might have with that. And I will say this is the last section of trail that ties the entire Chehalis Western from north to south. So if you have any questions?
Yes, several. He's
Yes.
first and then Robin.
I'm looking at number 2, the track servicing settlement, due to settlement caused by construction of the bridge, but not caused by the railroad rumbling by?
I'm sure they're tied together. What they're covering there is any, I'm going to say, soil conditions that might not be readily available. And so as the bridge is used for the first couple of years, if there happens to be any minor settlement and they need to come back and readjust their rail accordingly, we wouldn't pay for that. From what we've been told, that's usually does not happen, and the fix is not a substantial, I mean, it's not a substantial dollar amount to adjust that in the future.
And there's a clause in the contract about disputes and how they we resolve.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
curious. Thank you. I'm curious about who owns the bridge? The railroad company owns the bridge?
The railroad company does own the bridge.
Then why would the county be paying for the maintenance of a privately owned bridge?
Because the bridge is being installed strictly for the benefit of the county.
It's not being installed for the benefit of the railroad and the trains going over the bridge? They have an alternate track?
They actually don't need an alternate track. Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director, they don't need an alternate track. We have been running our trail parallel to the railroad. They are going to be closing that off. They actually don't need to track to the bridge. Their tracks are working fine. We're asking for it so that we can connect the trail underneath the bridge.
I have to wonder then if this can be approved as, if it's a gift of public funds to a private corporation. Has that been reviewed by legal?
I guess along the same lines, this is, I guess my past history with BNSF, and it's unfortunate because even items number 1 and 3 and 2 and 3 of the potential agreement, the BNSF is the one who's going to be conducting the design and construction of this tunnel. So they are the ones who are going to be providing the design. They're going to be carrying the construction. And why are we going to be putting ourselves in the position to pay for any settlement of the railroad tracks when they are the ones who have designed that? They are the ones who constructed. And also, why are we going to be paying or be on the hook for any changes and alterations if they decide to put another 2 lines? And then we will be on the hook to pay for yet another bridge.
Is that kind of what you're asking, Robin?
Well, kind of. And how did we not know this when we entered into this project? That we'd have to bear these additional costs?
At this point, do we need to go back and do some more?
This agreement is under consideration. I don't think we have signed any agreements.
No, we have not. No.
Yeah.
Okay. It's extremely exciting to be able to complete that section of the trail, but at what cost to the county?
Sure. He has a question, a comment?
No, I don't. I don't. It's just, I have the same questions that I had about maintaining it. It's damaged by BNSF.
And it's not a reflection of Public Works. This is just my personal perspective, my history with BNSF. They continue to be what I call the mighty utility. They put such a burdensome requirements to the county. And even when we were considering this tunnel 4 years ago, it was the same requirements that at that point it was too burdensome for the county to agree on the terms and conditions the BNSF wanted to put in. And here we are. They put in the same type of restrictions on the county to take this incredible responsibility and liability.
Okay, so I think at this juncture, hang on a second, I'm going to just take it and delegate it to you and Robin to go back and kind of get some of this cleared up before we can go forward with any, just clear the muddy water, so to speak, where the liability is a resident. So.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of work that needs to be done.
No sense in
Well, these are the conditions.
Yeah.
So
it is what it is.
Wanting to move forward, and so I think that absolutely let's have additional conversations, and then kind of here's what the plan B is going to be, because we will be putting people on Rainier Road for a lot lengthier amount of time. Because we will be cutting off the area that we've been using so far.
Okay.
It was like HO gauge meeting N gauge, and it's just not making sense.
Sure. All right. Thank you very much. No, we don't have to go anywhere. We got a closed session.
Oh, I thought you had to go somewhere. Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah.
You're going to be here. All righty. We're going to go into closed session.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.